What's going on, guys? It's Nabel J. Lee with another new BUZZCast here at Buzzworthy Radio. And we're still continuing our Hotel Cocaine Week. As you can see, little costume change. Had to get into the flavor of it a little bit. But we have Erniel Baez joining us. He talks about Ray Dorado, who appears for the first time in this upcoming episode that airs this Sunday on MGM Plus. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I have already seen episode 4. So I've already said on this show that it really kicks into high gear when episode 4 drops, but I'm going to be excited because I've only seen up to episode 4. So I'm going to be on the ride with you, and I can't wait because from what everybody's been talking about, it's about to go down with the last 4 episodes remaining of the season. So we got to talk to Erneal about Ray and the history of Ray Dorado, the backstory to Ray himself as a real life person, as Erneal actually read up about him just to get a little bit of an idea of the person, the personality, and the character, and even with a potential backstory, like basically hearing about what can we expect with Ray in the show. And there's just so much more that we dove into that I don't want to give it all away. You gotta watch and you gotta listen to it. So here it is, our interview. Check it out with Erniel Baez. We get to talk about your character, Ray Dorado, and I believe he actually makes his first appearance in this upcoming episode. Um, for for those of you who haven't watched Hotel Cocaine, Ray's character name has been mentioned already. We just haven't seen him. We actually will get to see him coming up on this Sunday's episode. And tell us a little bit about his character. I've already seen episode 4, by the way, so I already know what's coming down. But for those that are
Oh,
getting ready to see it,
believe me, you don't. Because even though you've seen four, there's still a whole lot left to be surprised about.
oh, I was told.
Yeah, there is a lot of surprises down the line for Ray. Ray, I mean, Ray is a fantastic character. He's I really have always seen him as the incarnation of the American dream. He's Cuban American immigrant that finds his way to the top as far as success is concerned in the 70s and 80s. He's a character he's fictionalized, but in real life, but in actuality, he was based largely on a real life character, which had the same first name as him, and who also frequented the Mutiny Hotel back in the 70s and 80s. He's a big time banker in the city of Miami when the story starts in 1978. And in the show, he's, a regular, natural client and customer of the Mutiny Hotel and Mutiny Club. And as we're going to see in episode 4, he's going to start becoming a crucial part of the story because he's going to start bringing together both the flamboyant world
Yeah.
of the Muni Hotel, and he's gonna interconnect it with the underworld of Miami at that time. So he's really gonna serve as an octopus, for lack of a better term, and with all his tentacles, he's gonna start bringing together characters and people into the same room and into the same situation that otherwise would not have met or seen each other or really had any kind of relationship. So that's, I think, what's interesting about him, and because of that, he's really fun character and interesting because he's very multifaceted, because he deals with a large range of different characters and different people from different worlds, from different from different walks of life, rather. And so he's gonna act in a different way depending on who he's with, like the character in real life, I imagine would have, because
Yeah.
to be a banker, high-end banker that has big affiliations and friendships with very powerful, economically wealthy, influential individuals of the legitimate world, and at the same time, very much like the real character in real life, to have connections with the most dangerous criminals of the underworld. It takes a certain talent. You have to be like a chameleon. You got to know when to walk a certain way and when to act a certain way, when to
Yeah.
talk a certain way, because you can't allow people to walk over you, but at the same time, you can't walk over some people because they're more dangerous than others. So it's he's very street smart, very cunning, very charismatic when he needs to be, and very dangerous when he has to be individual. He's a survivor, basically, is what he is.
Yeah. I will say, so caution everybody, spoiler alerts. So, first of all, if you haven't gotten up to episode 3 as of yet, Ray's appearance in the show deals with the fact about how Burton really got the Mutiny Hotel, basically under false pretenses, and he's doing everything in his power to make sure he doesn't lose control of the hotel to his sister. So he needs to basically go to Ray, and he was warned not to go to Ray because, as you just said, he can be a dangerous man. And of course, Burton doesn't really listen to what is told to him and goes right on the opposite cusp of everything and brings in Ray to the field. And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say now, obviously from watching episode 4 and just seeing your portrayal of the character with Mark's Burton,
Mm.
I love the fact that, again, as you said, he can be ruthless and he can be charismatic, but it's just something about this character that he brings this sadistic humor with him that I completely enjoyed you playing when you were acting opposite of Mark in those scenes. I love the fact that we know he can be a dangerous man. We know that he can bring the street smarts to the table. But I love the fact that you brought some sense of humor. Rather, it was a little bit on the darker side. It was still humor. I love that aspect of his character, so I enjoyed seeing that. So I wanted to mention that first
You might.
and foremost for you. What what attracted you to the show itself as a whole? Not just the role when
Mm.
you were offered Ray, but the show itself. What attracted you to it?
Oh man, so many things. I mean, honestly, I mean, it might sound a little cheesy or whatnot, and then here you have an actor gonna say he liked everything about the show and whatnot, but that's actually the case for me. I mean, the show really hit home on aspects. First of all, the fact that it's a Cuban American actor, role, sorry, character rather. And so I had never played an actual Cuban American or Cuban character, despite the fact that I am Cuban. So that was
Mhm.
interesting to me. Number two, the era where the story's taking place. So in the 70s and 80s. So I grew up watching and idolizing films from the 70s and 80s. And it's an era that I hold a particular love and affiliate and um, admiration for. So to be able to portray that kind of era in Miami, immediately you think Scarface, obviously, and it's one of my favorite films. So it's to be able to be involved in that world. You know, the Miami 70s music, wardrobe, gangster crime. You know, it's like there's so many things that bring us to certain films that I was like, I can't wait to dive my teeth into that. There was obviously the fact to be able to work with someone that's as renowned, as talented as Chris Brancato. I had
Yes.
seen Narcos. I absolutely loved Narcos, both Narcos, the original, and Narcos Mexico. So to be able to collaborate with someone like that was a fantastic opportunity. To be able to work alongside an Academy Award winner in Guillermo Navarro, I could not wait to get that opportunity as well and see what that entailed. To be able to work alongside industry greats like Michael Chiklis and Danny
Yes.
Pino and Yo Vasquez, Cuban Americans in their own right. Which I know and have followed their careers and have admired since I was a kid. I mean, I remember in the case of Michael Chiklis going to the movie theaters when I was about maybe 11 years old and watching Fantastic Four, you know what I mean? So it was to be able to be in the same scene with him um, was something special. And so just when I saw that whole team that had been put together in the world that it was going to partake in, with the creator, the showrunner, and the writer that it had behind it, and the director that it had guiding it, I and then to top it all off, I mean, if all that doesn't sound good enough, it was to be able to go and shoot in the Dominican Republic, which for anybody would be a dream, right? Because it's, it's like a paradise and you're in you're in the Caribbean and whatnot. But for me, it was particularly special because it was right next to home. So it was almost like shooting back home for me.
Yeah.
And I've always dreamt of being able to do that. So it checked all kind of things off the checklist for me. And then to finish it off even more,
Oh,
to be able
there's more.
yeah, there is more actually. To be able to play a character that was as I started reading and informing myself on it, to try to prepare for the character,
Yeah.
I started realizing that, wait a minute, this is based on somebody that actually existed. Yes, fictionalized and whatnot, but this is based on somebody. And this is based on an actual place which I had never heard about somehow. I never heard of the
Yeah.
Mutiny Hotel. I had never heard of all the insanities that had gone on at that time in that particular place, and that this character was there. So when I started getting that information too, it really made it interesting for me because I've always wanted to try and play a real life character. And so that helped me a lot, and that informed me a lot for my interpretation. So yeah, man, all kind of things.
It the show itself, I mean, obviously I fell in love with it since F1, and I've told everybody once you hit episode 3,
Mm.
it's about to jump off. Very excited to see where the story's going to go after episode 4, because the one thing I will say about it is that there is no going back after what transpires in episode 4. No going back, because
There isn't. I mean, it just starts getting more and more serious from there, and
yep,
it starts getting more and more interesting from there because, I episode 1 and 2 is more an introduction to the world itself. Then episode
right,
3, 4 is more of an introduction and a development of the main characters that will bring some spiciness and some help the drama that ensues later on. Then after that, from there, it's just now where it's all going to lead up to. So yeah, it's I really liked episode 3 personally. Because it's like I said, it just started making things for the viewer a little bit more entertaining, in the sense of now you start seeing more of the action, more of the drama, and you start
exactly.
starting to lead, and he's like, okay, now this is getting interesting, right? And so hopefully it continues to go down that path, and people that have the opportunity to watch it can enjoy it and be entertained by it.
Listen, we got some slew of characters that are hitting this next episode. Besides yours, we got the character of Yolanda coming in, and already I was just interested in her story as well. That character just came in guns blazing. And apologies to not getting the actress's name, but
We'll see you.
thank you. She was just, she's just fierce. Just got this fire, and there's a particular scene that's just really, when everybody gets to see it, you're gonna understand why I keep telling y'all, if you don't have your air conditioner on, turn it on when you watch this next episode because of a particular scene that she's in. So I looking forward to it.
Is that the one where on the boat?
No, after that,
Okay. All
when
right.
she meets Roman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Last Tango in Paris.
Yes.
You
I've
got it.
already said this to people in an interview before, so I'm literally, it is not known. It is known. So I'm just gonna keep
Yeah,
telling y'all, you don't understand how much you're gonna need to turn on the air when you see it. I'm just
it
saying.
gets spicy. It gets spicy. It gets spicy. That's good, man.
Yes, yes, man. I mean, just to piggyback off of something that you said before, where you were learning about some of the facets, not just of the show, but some of the characters that it takes a part of, since we all know that Roman Conte, it is based off Maurice Conte's father, who is the executive producer of the show. Obviously, some parts of it are embellished for dramatic emphasis, which, of course, one of which is the fact that Roman didn't have a brother in real life. This was added into the show. But when you started learning about aspects of like the Mutiny Hotel and Roman and everything like that. Um, did that inspire you to just learn even more about it? Because again, you were just so interested in just from our conversation just now, how you were getting all this information. You just were enthralled of what you were hearing. How much more did you look into that history after that?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I first of all, I read the script and whatnot, and I was interested by the theme, by the genre, by the world. right off the bat because I love crime dramas. I always have. But then, as you said, it started off with my manager happened to find online some pictures and a link to something
Hmm.
on it, started seeing it, and I started seeing how the actual Mutiny Hotel was in Scarface, the movie Scarface. The
Yeah.
club that you find in Scarface is the Mutiny Hotel. I was intrigued. They already had me hooked. From then on, they had me hooked. And then I was like, I had no idea about this. Okay, and then I started reading on it, and then eventually I came across a couple of books that were very explicit as far as to the various adventures that took place in the Mutiny Hotels and the various characters that would frequent the Mutiny Hotel and throughout the course of the years, especially throughout the course of the late 70s and early to mid 80s.
Hmm.
And so definitely started reading up on it, and I honestly could not believe the things that I was reading. I was
Yeah.
like, this is actually taking place. Like, we're flying around the country to find the biggest reserves of Dom Perignon in order to fill out bathtubs for sheiks and multi-billionaires to take baths with girls in with Dom Perignon just to flex. I mean, this is insane, like and that's just like the cherry on top. So many crazy things and so many interesting characters. And so really the thing that came off the page reading all that was, well, I can't wait to be able to be a part of this because
Yeah.
I'm reading so much story and so much narrative and so many possibilities of things that are naturally cinematic that were actually taking place. That's without thinking or touching on the fiction, on the imagination of things, just
Right.
actually. So if there's all of this to be able to help you and guide you to to make something interesting, I can't wait to see what a great writer like Chris Brancato is going to be able to do, and Michael Payne's is going to be able to do on the page when he can actually start adding some fictionalized things. So it really it informed me on the world and on the realities that my character and the man that he was based on was surrounded by. But at the same time, it excited me because it made me know that I was definitely going to be a part of something that was hectic and that was thrilling and that was full of excitement and there was a lot to write about, basically. There was a lot to write about. And so that's why I think the show hopefully goes on for a second season and a third and a fourth and a fifth and 10 seasons because there's just so much to write about and so many different characters passed through that hotel in real life. And so many crazy stories actually took place in that hotel in real life
Absolutely.
that definitely a great writer like Chris Brancato, Michael Payne can make a lot from it.
One thing that I will mention before I get into this next question, you just said something that really was interesting that I brought up before is that there were stories that we are somewhat seeing on the show that did take place in the Mutiny Hotel, the Club Mutiny. And a comment that I have made was that we have characters like the Rick James and the Liza Minnelli's that was showcased, and you're seeing these. I don't want to say parodies of real life personas. I don't want to say it that way, but you're seeing these these personas that we have grew up with
Right.
showcased in this way. And but the interesting about it with Chris and Maurice at the show is that they're an integral part to the story, but they don't take up the story. And I love that that's how they wrote those characters, what they wrote for Rick and in the show. I love the fact that while the character of Rick James did get screen time and was a part of Burton's story, he
Mhm.
didn't take over Burton's story, let alone the story of Hotel Cocaine itself. So I love the fact that they're utilizing these characters that are fleshing out the main characters of the show.
To
It's not,
compliment
yeah,
the
it's not taking away from them, and I think I love that aspect of it. One of the things I definitely wanted to mention with you was I've talked with Danny Pino about this multiple times, and I just love the fact that we have a show that is showcasing, as you just said yourself a few moments ago, with Cuban representation with in the show. I love getting the chance to see them going back and forth between English and Spanish language in the show. I love the fact that we have leads that are Cubans in this. And I know that was one of the things you said that really did attract you to being a part of this show. I just I'm just enthralled by that we get to have and see that representation and bringing on actors who also represent that culture. Um, you yourself, just seeing that yourself, I mean, you already answered it, but it's just when you're just seeing everybody that's coming on board that have that that is really a part of Cuban American, and you're now playing a Cuban role. You've never really done that before, as
Mm.
you just said. Um, just kind of elaborate a little bit more just on the fact that you're now part of something that is really not only has this culture a part of it, but they're also writing it in such a way where it's not one offensive, but it's also very true to the actors and actresses that are in these parts.
Absolutely, man. It is definitely a wonderful opportunity and a gift to be able to see representation on the screen for any and all minorities.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful thing to see because it's a very big world with all kind of different people in it, and everyone deserves to have a chance to be seen on the screen, be it the big screen or the small screen. And unfortunately, there has been progress done in that area, but there's always more progress to be made. And
Hmm.
specifically speaking, when we talk about, for example, like in the show, Cuban, there is not too many Cuban roles or Cuban characters. As a matter of fact, the most famous Cuban character ever portrayed was portrayed by an Italian American, and that was Al Pacino in Scarface.
Yeah.
And even from there, and I am completely fine with that, by the way. I am completely fine, and I think all actors, we're actors, we should get an opportunity to be able to interpret different characters from different nationalities. We should not be bottled up. If you're Hispanic, only play Hispanic. If you're, if you're Italian, play Italian. If you're
Hmm.
Irish, play Irish. We're actors. We're here to act. But I think it is beautiful to be able to have that kind of representation and characters from a wide range of nationalities like we have on the show. And I think the beautiful thing about it, I'm going to touch on two bases, is that in this show, one of its strengths is the multinationality aspect that it has, because you have number one, characters from a large range of nationalities, but two, you have actors from those wide range nationalities
Yeah.
portraying these characters. So you have Colombians, you have Cubans, you have Mexicans, you have Spaniards, you have Americans. So that gives it a certain legitimacy in the interpretations and a certain realness and a certain transparency that you would perhaps not see would those characters be interpreted by people that either are not from those backgrounds or have never been involved with those backgrounds
Right.
whatsoever. Right. That was incredibly beautiful to see. And obviously as time progressed and we were all together, it built an even bigger chemistry because we were, on one island for 4 months together and we really
Hmm.
built a family-like environment. And then I think you can see that on the screen. The second aspect is, and that's you got to be, we have to all be thankful to Mr. Chris Brancato and Michael Payne, the writer on the show, for their leniency and their flexibility to be able to give us actors permission to be able to go out there and explore and to a certain point, if need be, improvise or talk to him about the script and how can we turn this into what we want it to be. From day
Yeah.
one, the first conversation that I ever had, and I am 1,000% certain it's going to be the same thing across the board with every other actor. From the first conversation I had with Chris, he told me, listen, this is your character. You're going to know him better than I do. You're going to spend more time with him than I do. And I am completely open for you to come and talk to me about him. If you have a doubt, bring it forward. If you have an idea, bring it forward. If there's a word, a phrase, something that you're not comfortable with or that you feel could be given a certain mention it, bring it forward, and we will not just consider it, but we will see how we can apply it because ultimately that's why he surrounded himself with people that number one were talented, yes, but number two, that he thought could bring to those respective characters uh, a sense of reality and of naturality. And I think that's why we see those beautiful scenes, for example, between Yo Vasquez and Danny Pino when they speak the
Yeah.
Spanish, like you're saying, and they're using actual Cuban slang and actual Cuban words that you would hear in the streets of Miami or even in Cuba. But let's say in the streets of Miami for the sake of the story,
Right.
that brings you to a sense of reality. Had you just have been, and I know for a fact many of those were just on the day, oh, I think we should say this like this, and bring some Spanish here like this, or like this phrase, I know what you're trying to say, but we Cubans would say like this. Okay, perfect, go with it. And that's what me as a Cuban watching the show, those moments I feel identified with, and every other Cuban will as well. Whereas had you kept the original version of that phrase, or had said it in English, or had said it in a Spanish that is not usually used by us in our community, we've been like, this looks fake for some reason.
Right.
And you have actual Cubans, so why didn't they say it the way that, because you know how we are, right? You
That is true.
know,
That is true.
and then immediately you lose us. You would lose us, and you can't lose your audiences, right? So that's what I
Right.
think is one of the strengths of the show, and that's all thanks to obviously the incredibly talented cast, but also the incredibly talented and Chris Brancato, Michael Payne, and their ability to be able to recognize what they know and what they can get better on. And hopefully it works out and people like it and enjoy it.
I appreciate you saying that because not many fields in this industry you have those type of showrunners where they give those actors that creative freedom.
Mm,
And just hearing this story, I love the fact that was said because it basically enforces the idea of Chris and Michael want to have character-driven stories. They want to have character-driven material, and this falls in line with that simply because of the quote you just said that these actors are going to know the characters more than they will. They know how the character is going to be represented, how they're going to act, whether they're going to be when they're with their family or their friends,
yeah,
whoever they're acting opposite of on the screen. I love that aspect of it. So thank you for sharing that because that is one of the biggest things, at least in my television viewing, that I always look for is character-driven stories. And I love that. And I think that's also another reason why I fell in love with Hotel Cocaine, because you can tell that when you watch it, you know that it's character-driven and not plot-driven material. So
right, right. The focus is really the emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual transition that those characters individually go throughout the course of the series. 100%.
it's definitely true. You notice that even with Roman and
Yeah.
how he's trying to deal with the DEA informant, which is played by Michael Chiklis, and then dealing with Nestor, played by Yul, um, and how he is trying to encompass what is the right thing for him to do
Mhm.
on both fronts as well as his own for his family. So it's really great to see in that aspect. And then also with the other characters on their spectrum, even with Burton, I always say that Burton is the levity of the show, but you're also seeing what drives him to do what he's doing and what he's trying to achieve. So in retrospect, while he is providing that as far as the levity is concerned, you are still seeing what is driving him to do what he does. You're also seeing what drives Nestor to do what he does. And that even it comes into play when it comes to his family. You're also seeing what he does to protect his family. So that's really one of the biggest things that I love about the show. And you just hit the nail on the head. It's just you get to see it through their psyche, and I love every aspect of that. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, absolutely. But I do need to ask a selfish question. This is a selfish
Mm,
question.
okay. You get
So
only you get only two, by the way. This is your first.
So I actually do have two selfish questions actually. So this
Okay,
works
there we
out
go.
well. The first one is
Yeah,
how was the premiere? Because you were at the premiere,
yeah.
and so what was that like walking the carpet seat and everybody watching it on the big screen for the first time for the pilot? What was that experience like for you?
For me personally, it was a dream come true, man. I'm a small Cuban boy from the city of Cardenas, next to Varadero touristic point, and to be able to go to Hollywood, and the City of Angels for the first time in my case, and to be able to go to a Hollywood premiere surrounded by not only the stars of the show, obviously, which are stars in their own right, but um, to be able to go and see something that I was a part of. was one of those dreams come true for me, and that is definitely checked off the bucket list, as so many other things that have come along with this show. So it was a fantastic experience. Number one, because we got to see each other again.
Yeah.
We've seen each other for a couple of months now, and it was fantastic to reunite and reacquaint ourselves with everybody and see how they were. And unfortunately, not everybody was there, but an important part was, and the ones that were not there were definitely in our thoughts and in our hearts every time they came on screen, or every time that we talked about something. And hopefully in the near future we'll be able to all gather around and see each other again. But the most important thing about this show, and I've said this everywhere I've went, is yes, the experience was fantastic and the show was great, and like I said, all the great people that we worked with. But the most important part of the show was the friendships that were created.
Hmm.
Those friendships were really created because of the conditions under which we filmed, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, on one island, 4 months, eating together, working together, working out together, laughing together. Everything was done together, pretty much. So those friendships will last forever, and to be able to see each other, reacquaint with each other again, just have a good time and just enjoy it, and know in the back of your mind that whatever you did is done now, and now it's for the world to judge. So that was a great moment, a great yeah, a great moment. Just leave it at that.
Okay.
And yeah, and then for me, it was something that we're always dreaming of when we're growing up, right? To be able to go to Hollywood and to see that sign, and for me to be able to go there for my first time, and for it not to be for touristic reasons, but for it to be for
Yeah.
practical reasons. Um, it was sort of like the cherry on top of the cake.
Full circle moment, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%.
And the second question is, when they got you in the duds for your character, thoughts. I would love to know because Ray's got a little swag. He's got
Mm,
a little swag. So what did you think of the duds that Ray gets to wear in the show? Because again, one of the things I never got to talk about was the fashion that they are able to incorporate in the show, and they have some very interesting pieces, and it just pops. So,
it's
and
beautiful.
Ray's not off the list on that. So
No, he can't be, because he was someone who was very driven on the materialistic side of things and on his work.
you can tell.
Well, first of all, I'd be remiss if I don't mention the great Alela Cortazar, which was our costume designer, which is one of the most talented uh, costume designers that I've ever seen or had the pleasure to work with, and she's just the most kind, loving human being on the face of planet Earth. So wherever she is, thank you, because she was really the mastermind behind the look of not just Ray, but every other character, from the extra that's standing the furthest away from the camera to the main actor that's in front of the camera. And I think the wardrobe, along with the wonderful set designs and with the the music, are what bring this show to life, because that's what that era was about.
Right.
70s and 80s, especially the 70s, which we're in the end of in the show, were about. And everybody that got the chance to live through those years, that's the first thing that they think about and that they talk about whenever they mention the 70s, right? Is the
Yep.
music, is the clothing, is the environment, the world, and the feeling that that brought forth. So um, for Ray, it was fantastic, because for Ray, the first thing that came across from the information that I got started when I started reading on the character and the real life character
Mhm.
was that he was someone who was very materialistic, and it was very important for him to have to show pizzazz, to show through what he wore, through what he ate, through what he drank, through
Mhm.
what he drove, to show that he had made it, that he was
Yeah.
powerful, that he was legitimate, that he belonged in the world with the higher ups, you know, and naturally being, just another Cuban American, Cuban immigrant, really integrating
Yeah.
Miami at the time, and you could easily be discarded, by the legitimate world, by the people who actually had money, actually had power. So when he came to it, he wanted to make sure that he showed it, you know. And so those suits were amazing. I mean, number one, me, I felt identified because another thing that I felt identified with him was because I love suits. I'm a fan of suits. And I've always had a thought that a man looks at his finest when he has a nice tailor-made suit and is clean shaven and has a proper haircut. Those
Not
are
to
the
disagree.
and so to be able to get an opportunity to be able to go tailor-made here for every single episode was fantastic. I mean, he wears probably a suit every single scene. There's probably two exceptions to that because of continuity. So it's scenes that take place
Sure.
immediately right after, but otherwise every scene that's taking place in a different location, a different time zone, even if it's during the day both or during the night both, he's changing. He would wake up in a suit, go to bed in a suit, wake up in a suit somehow, take breakfast in a suit. He had a lunch suit, a supper suit, and that was beautiful. It was wonderful to be able to explore all those costumes and all that wardrobe and to be able to let that sink in because that really helps you and informs you on the psyche of the character and also on the physicality of the character.
Yeah.
And so he was definitely someone of class, or at least would like to think of himself as such. And so those suits, man, they were wonderful.
I love the point that you said that he had to show off that he had come into money, he had money. I
Mm,
I do necessarily agree, especially during that time period. I feel that for anyone that was a minority, who is a minority, um, I won't say this for everybody, but I'll say this about myself. So I'm going to put myself in check here.
right.
I necessarily have felt once upon a time, sometimes I still do, that
Mm,
sentiment. Because I felt that at one point others could not perceive me as being someone in a position of power. I've
yeah.
experienced it, I lived it, so that's the reason why I say that because I was told as such to my face.
Mm,
So for you to say that, it really made me think that's exactly why I do it because I, in essence, show off. I do have some cash, and I do sit at the big boy table, and in essence, it makes me feel like you should respect me as such.
mm,
But yet, it also shows to other people that oh, you do sit at the big boy table, and I'm like, yes, I do, and I'm
yeah.
not ashamed to say so. So when you said that, it kind of resonated with me a little bit because I was like, yeah, I lived that experience once upon a time in my life. I saw it, went through it, still in essence going through it.
Mm.
So for you to say that, I was like, yeah, I felt every aspect of that statement. So I get it.
Well, I
But
appreciate you sharing that, man. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we live in a very material world, all right, and we're in a consumer society, and it's the case now in 2024. It was the case in 1970s United States and the city of Miami as well. So, and definitely one can, especially if one is one, when you're an immigrant, you know the certain aspects that takes the conditions under which both mentally and socially one stands and
yeah,
immediately when I started, reading up on the Mutiny Hotel, and I was fortunate enough to come across some information on the real Ray. Immediately when I started seeing them saying he had to have, a quarter of a million Rolex on his wrist. He
hmm
had to have a different suit, silk suit, tailor made. He had to drink Chateau Lafite imported from Chile. He had
yeah,
to drive a Rolls Royce. When I see all these things, I'm like, I see you. I know what you're doing.
I know
You
what
know,
you're doing. Yeah,
yeah. You're not just no, you don't because other people that were born with that, they might have it, but they don't feel the need to show it necessarily every single moment. But when you don't have it from birth and you get it, you really want to make sure you show it because
yeah,
you're in a position of when you're sitting at a table and it's a congressman, or you're sitting at a table and it's a Caucasian banker that comes from banking family, and when you're sitting at a table and it's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and here you are deep down inside, fully aware that you're just some Cuban immigrant that arrived to the country about 10 years ago and is opening up a bank with his father like he did in real life. Um, and you're trying to just feel like you belong, you're gonna definitely start showing things. And that's like a
Yeah.
facade. It's like a defense mechanism that you do in order for you to feel protected and feel like I belong here and make sure that everybody around you knows that. So that's definitely one thing that informed me on the character, and it opened up many of the reasons why he reacted a certain way with different people, and really informed me on also the psyche and psychology of the character, because from there you can really start extrapolating a lot of different reactions that he might have under different circumstances with different individuals. So yeah, it was very informative, but thank you for sharing that.
There was one point you also just said just a few moments ago is that you don't need to show off to everybody exactly what you have. Learning that was very difficult at the time, but I learned that, but it wasn't an easy process
Mm,
at the time. But
right.
I have noticed that no one needs to know. No one needs to know what you do, what you have in your life, what's in your pocket. No one needs to know any of that stuff. You're
Well,
living.
because I really care for you will value you for who you are, not what you have.
Yeah,
And people that's
absolutely.
valuing you for what you have don't really care for you.
Absolutely. And I will say this, once COVID became the biggest thing in 2020, that's when you realize that comment that you just said.
Mm,
That for me, it was when it really opened that door. So when I experienced that, then I was really like, wow. So I know who's riding or dying for me, and I know who's
mm,
actually only here to ride the coattails. So
right.
it was a very eye-opening thing for me. And yeah, I carry that with me every day I wake up. And
And
I appreciate the fact that I have that, but I also appreciate the fact that you said that to make me also realize it again that, by the way, I'm living my best life and I'm enjoying it no matter who is in my corner. So thank you for that.
amen for that, brother. Amen for sure. 100%.
And listen, I am excited for everybody to see the next episode coming down on Sunday. And you talked about suits. I still need to get my newest suit tailored because so yes, thank you for reminding me of that. That's got to
Oh,
get done.
for
But
sure.
yeah, man, I am looking forward to everybody seeing us on Sunday, but then I'm also looking forward to when episode 5 hits.
So,
I am excited to finally watch new episodes with everybody, but
right.
it's about to jump off, man, and I'm so excited you got to spend some time with me and talk about the show and Ray and everything else in between. This was great, and I would love to have you back.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, man. It's been the pleasure's been 100% mine, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. And hopefully, you can enjoy the rest of the season, and the world can enjoy it as well, as they get a chance to start seeing it, slowly as time passes in the next couple of weeks and months. But thank you very much for having me, man. It's been a great chat. Great to talk to you, to know a little more about you, and to talk about some Ray and about some hotel cocaine and about some fun. And I look
Absolutely.
us to have some more conversations in the near future.
You know how to reach me, and same for you, man. I loved it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Been my pleasure, brother.
All right.
Blessings. Hear yourself.
Take
All right.
care. Many thanks to Erniel Baez for stopping by the show, and make sure you catch him on Hotel Cocaine. It airs this Sunday. Now, make sure you note the time change because from the first 2 episodes, it dropped at 10 p.m. Eastern on MGM Plus. But now, going forward, all episodes will be dropping at 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you note that change. But I'm looking forward to seeing his first appearance on the show and what's going to happen thereafter. And speaking of that surprise guest that I've been hinting about that's supposed to be stopping by to round out Hotel Cocaine Week, stay tuned for that on my Instagram because I will be revealing that very, very soon. But that's going to do it for me for right now. I'm Navel J. Lee, making sure you keep getting the latest buzz with Buzzworthy Radio by logging on to our website at buzzworthyradiocast.com. You can also follow us on X at Buzzworthy Radio and liking us on our Facebook page. We're even on Instagram, as I said, at BuzzNav and at Buzzworthy Radio. And finally, you can stream our podcasts at Amazon Music and iHeartRadio. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.